So an important concept that we talk about in TRE is this idea of self-regulation, because we view tremoring as something that you're certainly classes are very helpful, even sometimes one-on-one sessions can be helpful. But what we love so much about TRE is that it's a process that can be self-guided, and that even when we're not in a class, you could, as soon as you feel that you have enough self-regulation, that's the thing I'm talking about, then you can safely use this technique independently. And that's one of the big strengths of this method, is it's something that we can take home and use as part of our daily life for nervous system regulation. So what's included in this idea of self-regulation? What it means is that we are tuned in, or we're listening closely enough to the signals of our body, mind, and nervous system that we can make choices around guiding our practice so that we stay within a zone that's feeling comfortable, productive, safe, and we're avoiding anything like pain, excessive discomfort, anything that's a little bit too much emotionally, things like that. So the idea is that this process works best. We're not thinking of this as just sort of get it all done in one session. That's not the idea. The idea is if we can do it in a productive and self-regulated, safe way each time, and we do it time by time, the accumulation of those sessions are what's going to add up to the re-regulation of the autonomic nervous system, the release of stress in our neuromuscular tension patterns. And so it's the accumulation of self-regulated sessions rather than really big ones that might, in some cases, be too much or a little bit overwhelming or something like that. So the things that we want to watch out for, I think of them as kind of the boundaries for our practice that we want to be listening for so that we're not overdoing it. Because that's the simple way to say it. How do we practice in a way that we're not overdoing it? So really obvious ones are pain. So pain like joint pain, lower back pain, or even other types of pain. Now, I'm going to sort of fudge things just a little bit because, sometimes there's a certain amount of, say our muscles are sore, or we maybe, let's say, for example, if you have body aches because of having fibromyalgia or something like that. Now, there may be the kinds of aches and pains that you're a little bit familiar with that you're already used to. If when you're doing TRE, you're noticing some of those everyday sort of body aches, as long as they are not more pronounced than normal, then you're probably still okay. The TRE is not doing anything. If there's anything bad, if there's any sharp pain or new pain or something that's at a higher degree than you're used to, then that's happening while you're doing your TRE practice. We don't need to be scared of that, but we should treat it as a signal to rest or pause. So if we have some new pain, acute pain, unusual pain, the first step in self-regulation is coming to rest. And usually that means just laying long, flat on the floor, or rolling to the side, or even sitting up. Any of those are ideas to come in to take a pause. So this concept of pausing is important. Now, when we pause, there's a few things we can do. One is it's giving our body a rest. It's also stopping the tremoring for temporarily. And it's letting our autonomic nervous system catch up to what we've already been doing so far in our tremoring session. If your sensation of pain or whatnot, if it subsides right away, like it just goes away, then you can decide maybe I'll resume tremoring and see if I can tremor a little longer before getting to this threshold of pain. So in that situation, you can resume and find out. Now, many times, a pain that was there previously, after we've taken a rest, maybe some breaths, gave ourselves a minute or two of relaxation, many times you come back into tremoring and that's not really there anymore. Okay, great. So something needed to adjust and settle, and now we can continue on with the shake and release process in a way that's comfortable. If you resume tremoring again and it just comes right back, then that's usually a signal that maybe you've, even if it's only been a minute or two of tremoring, you maybe have already done enough for today. Sometimes we can tremor for 15, 20 minutes on a given day, and sometimes we tremor less than that, but something comes up that tells us that's enough for this occasion. And right now I'm using the example of pain. If the pain doesn't go away after a rest, then we can treat that as, okay, that was enough for my body and nervous system today. Now, this same idea applies to, so I've been talking about pain so far, but it's the same, but there are other kind of, let's call it adverse things that might arise that we should listen to and pay attention to. Here's some common examples. Sometimes we're tremoring and we start to get a little bit of a headache. Okay, headache would be exactly the same as what I just described with pain. If we start to get a headache, we pause, we come into a resting position, and we observe. Does the headache does it kind of go away? Then maybe we could resume again. Or maybe it goes away to a low level and it's something we're very familiar with, well, we could resume. Or maybe it doesn't, it's sort of here to stay. If it's here to stay, then we could treat that as, okay, we've already had a meaningful session and we don't need more tremoring because it's time to integrate what we've already done. Another common example, sometimes we're tremoring, we get a little bit nauseous. It's exactly the same as pain or a headache. We want to treat, if you rest and everything settles back down and you resume again and you're fine, great, keep going. But if it sort of is here to stay, then you've done enough for today. Today's session, that was enough. Your nervous system is already processing something, so you don't need more tremoring. And then lastly, we would consider emotional processes can sometimes enter into our picture. One of the big benefits of TRE is that oftentimes it helps us work with stress, or sometimes works with some of our emotional processes like grief, sometimes frustration, anger, anything in the spectrum of our emotional system. Sometimes that can enter into our tremoring. Now, some of you, that might not happen, and that there's nothing wrong with that. It's not that tremoring is supposed to stimulate your emotional system. It sometimes does, and so that's why I'm mentioning it. Now, with emotion, when it comes in, if it feels kind of like, hey, it feels good to feel this, I've been needing to feel this, great. Then you're right on track. There's nothing dangerous about that. If you're feeling that this is a little surprising, perhaps a little overwhelming, maybe a little bit more emotion than you want to be experiencing, that's the reason to take a pause, just like with pain, headache, nausea. So if emotion comes up in a strong way or a fast way, or a little bit of an overwhelming way, then the best thing to do for self-regulation is to come into laying flat, or roll on your side, or even come up to sitting, and find out, does everything kind of settle down and then you can continue? Or maybe that's enough. You already had something important happen for you and you don't need more tremoring. So that's the basic idea around self-regulation that I wanted to just put some language for those of you who have been doing this.